Now, when you are talking about this today, this country is talking about food, this food protection, food for the people. Okay, these bills are there producing in the parliament. That too, after 65 years of our independence in the country. Okay, now the role of this our political parliamentary democracy, what we are going to reach ultimately.
But what, I mean, if you're talking about food protection, how can you build 140 dams in Arunachal Pradesh? How can you change the entire cropping pattern? How can you say that you should grow rice in Rajasthan and, you know, how can you have no respect for the environment? How can you be pushing out all kinds of nutritional grains to grow cash crops and have farmers committing suicide, you know? How can you just continuously refuse to look at what's going on?
First you produce food insecurity.
Then you talk about food security. You take away everything, then throw something.
Yeah. But the point is that you're running in the opposite direction. Instead of trying to fix the problem, you're running in the opposite direction. And then saying that, you know, we really believe in inclusive growth and, you know, globalization with the human face, and you've been inventing this completely meaningless language.
Yeah. But the point is, a lot of people's movements who have been struggling for all these Nadrega and all, they keep on telling that these are the means of empowering the people. These are means of empowerment of the people.
That is.
For example, Arundhati Roy. For her, this whole food campaign and other things were very important.
See, I think that
local. Madam, will try?
What is that?
Yeah, something special.
Local, very traditional rice and
Very nice. In the absence of a movement that is strong enough to turn the tide, it's very hard to criticize people for even asking for the crumbs, you know. You say, you know what, that's why it puts you in such an awkward position, you know.
Question is on globalization. This is supposed to be the period of globalization. What is your idea about it? Can it be used to the advantage of working people? If it can't, how do we resist globalization?
Well, globalization is one of the most loose words in the English language. What do we mean by globalization? Do we mean it culturally? Do we mean it economically? In what way? If we're talking about the economy, the globalized, the new economy, what it means is the free movement of capital and the caging of labor, right? So, in India, the kind of epitome of the lucky worker is supposed to be the worker in the Maruti factory. And you look what happened to them. You look at the conditions in which they have to work. So, how to resist it? Well, you know, how can I answer that question? There's so many people who try doing 100 different things to try and resist it. You know, I remember 12 years ago when I wrote, I was writing about it, and at that time when I was writing against privatization, and people would say, you know, they would be so insulting, you know. And I was saying that the first job is to make the enemy appear, because the enemy is so hidden. You know, it's not like colonialism where you can just see it. Now I think that that enemy has appeared, you know. But I think for instance perhaps in the last interview or something that I did, you were talking about, you know, I was saying that look at the big corporations in our country like Reliance and Tata. There are very few corporations in the world like that who own everything from natural gas to petroleum to media to publishing to education to resistance to everything, you know.
Whatever we don't eat also.
Huh?
Whatever we eat also. Yes.
Salt.
Salt, yeah.
So, at least the beginning would be to say that this cannot be allowed, you know, you can't have, you know, such a vast range of business interests, you know. But unless, I think that a lot of the time we waste fighting shadows, you know, and not understanding what the real fight is, you know. So.
Can you really, given the changes in the last few decades, differentiate culture from the commercialized economy? Because culture itself is so commodified nowadays.
Completely.
And one of our problems in today, we think is here, is that there is a great yearning among people to take our culture to the world. This is the catchphrase. That we the people of Assam, our culture is not known outside. It should be placed on the platform of the world, something like that, all those catchphrases. That makes us, you know, performers, not only performers, you know, very like exhibitionists.
Yeah.
Culture does not mean exhibition. It is something deeper. And that is lost now. And they have been turned into performers and exhibitionists. And so this is so the soul of the people is being
all of us,
destroyed.
all our souls, all our
No,
souls
of course I know.
there's a sort of, I think that a sort of pathology, you know, creeping in, which is very frightening, you know.
But despite that, two related questions I have. You said that first we have to make the enemy appear, you know. But the problem is that once you identify that this is our enemy and you start resisting against it, the character of the enemy gets changed. What I'm trying to put is that the you know, degree of mobility and frequency that they have, you know, in changing themselves, creating new demands and
like NGOs and
exactly. This is one. And secondly, despite all this, but there have been, to an extent, successful mobilization and resistance against this. For example, we talked about Bolivia and other places in Latin America. So, drawing from that, what could be the India's future kind of strategy or future kind of prospect for resisting the wave that we have been confronting now?
Like I said, I don't know what you mean when you use this word India, you know, which part, who's India, you know. I'm not just taking some intellectual posturing. I really don't know what you mean now when you say it. So, I think that, you know, there are many battles being fought, many are being lost, you know, very few are being won. But the real danger is that even though a lot of us have, a lot of our energy and imagination and fatigue, we are now a little tired, some of us, you know, saying the same thing, fighting, going on, writing, whatever it is. The point is that it has had a huge effect. Everybody, it's not just what people have done, But also the effect of those policies are now clear, you know. But unfortunately, the problem that confronts us is that whatever we do and however hard they have to push, whether they have to militarize, whether they have to bomb, whether they have to make it a police state, you know, that logic is also unrelenting on the other side, you know. So it isn't as if what is lacking is in imagination, because everybody knows and understands the problem, and even many have solutions to it.
Yeah.
The problem is, how do you fight this battle? Because it is a relentless battle in which they have so many weapons and we only have each other and then keep fighting each other. You know, so like the capitalists are so much more united than communists, even though communists are supposed to be the ones who are united.
Now, at one point we were talking about, for example, WSF, World Social Forum, and at other point, yeah, we also talked about Mumbai Resistance Forum, for example.
The World Social Forum is
And that's become now NGOs.
Yeah.
the other one also, as soon as WSF disappeared, the other.
What about the US, the role of US imperialism? Regarding global.
Well, the role of US imperialism is what it was, except that the US is now weakening considerably. And, you know, when you say imperialism now, you cannot be only talking about US imperialism. There's Chinese imperialism and there's a wannabe Indian imperialism also, you know, which is being played out in places like Africa, on the African continent. Certainly, what's going on in the Middle East has a lot to do with the realigning in the face-off with China. You know, in India too, the US is moving in here big time as an ally against China. You know, so if you look at the Indo-US knowledge treaty and agriculture treaty, it's not that it's just on some policy level. It's on a minute level that the connections are happening. You know, and the US has its people everywhere, whether it's in Chhattisgarh or Gujarat or wherever it is. You know. And it's just paying very close attention to who to back. I mean, if tomorrow they want you to forget about the genocide in Gujarat, the media will make sure you forget about it. You know, you can be cursing the people who raped the girl in Delhi, but when Mr. Modi is presiding over the rape of many Muslim women in Gujarat, you can say, why are you going on talking about the past, you know?
Make him the Prime Minister and many of the programs
Yes.
will get sold. Yeah.
So they can just turn whatever knobs, you know. So sometimes you know, knowing all this also makes you feel a bit as if you're in a nut house. You know.
And talking about the movements, people are in a state of unrest all over the country, and several social movements and political movements have arisen in response to it. The concept of civil society has been popular among the middle class people. Do you think that an encouraging development?
Is that a sort of tangential question about Anna Hazare?
Oh, yes.
No names named.
Let's call him Annie.
Annie, get your gun.
Annie. Well, see, I think that the anti-corruption movement, when it started, seriously worried me. You know, because what were they asking for? That Utpal bill, which very few people had read. It was quite a frightening document, you know, and it was basically asking for a parallel state, like a surveillance of more, this thousands of more police and bureaucrats, the power of surveillance, investigation, trial, punishment, everything. And there was no, the understanding of what you meant by corruption was the understanding of an accountant, some really pokery in the balance books. Whereas to me, corruption is about the imbalance of power and powerlessness.
Yeah.
And a lot of poor people in this country survive by corruption. Samosa sellers have to pay that cop 100 rupees. Now they'll have to pay the Utpal man also.
For the survival.
And to me, that was a very worrying thing. And then, of course, there was the taking it over by the Hindutva brigade and all of that. And even the corporations and every corrupt politician was on the anti-corruption movement, because corruption is a pot into which everybody can piss. Everybody, the most corrupt people can say we are against corruption. Very few people, I remember when Telka did their first sting operation about BJP corruption in that thing, and I said I was quite relieved that they were corrupt, because imagine if they were just ideological. It is so frightening, But
sometimes you report about Enron episode also, no?
Enron, yeah.
Sorry.
Enron.
But the thing is that what is this civil society asking for? Whether it's in this case of the rape, or whether it's in the gang rape of this young girl in Delhi, or whether it's in the case of corruption, one of the demands that keeps coming up is more surveillance, because the middle class trusts the law and the police and all, it works for them, Whereas what do you do when you belong to the class who the more police, the more the chances that you're going to get raped, The more violence is going to be perpetrated on you. What do you do about that? The imagination naturally becomes a very strong and powerful and punishment-oriented state. Whereas what we are seeing in the case of rape, for example, is that in places like Kashmir or Manipur or even Assam, the people who commit rape are protected by the law, by the FPSA or by other kinds of impunity. So it's a very complicated thing, the rise of the middle class civil society, that it is a class that's going to want to protect itself big time. It's a class that has had that meteoric rise and is now frustrated that that gradient is not carrying on up in the same way. So it has a lot of that bottled in anger. It's a class that feels impeded because it's pulling along this, what it sees as this burden of the poor, and it's being held back.
No, but what do you think of the those people, middle class or otherwise, who appear to think sincerely of helping the poor, of fighting for their rights and so on and so forth? Not that I support them or admire them at all, but there is a lot of people in so-called civil society groups who dispense charity or some kind of help to the poor. They get the Magsaysay awards and all that. What about them?
Well, the Magsaysay award is quite specific.
No.
It's funded by Rockefeller and
Yeah, I know. But my point is,
there are
there
many
also
levels of
this kind of civil society. This kind of civil society movement.
I think that I've written about this quite extensively in that essay on capitalism. About how corporations early in the 20th century started foundations to do charitable work, and that was a huge conceptual advance for them, because suddenly a lot of money without any legal restrictions on what they could interfere in, and it led to the founding of the Rockefeller Foundation, the Ford Foundation, which in turn helped to set up the CIA, the Council for Foreign Relations, from whose ranks every single World Bank president has come. So, the charity is actually the most profitable business on earth, in a way, because it helps you to control society in many, many ways.
The people in India, Arundhati Roy and those people, Jadres, that's how you pronounce his name?
Jadres.
Jadres. What do you think of them? How do you...
Even over to Central India. Even over to Central India.
Of course, Jadres and...
See, they are, what I was saying earlier, that in a situation where nobody is managing to really push back the wheel, you can't criticize them for trying to get what they can out of this merciless system, I can't say that they are doing what Ford Foundation or Rockefeller do, because they are the merciless system. Arundhati genuinely try to salvage what they can out of this, So I would not think that they are the right targets to, kind of attack venomously, because they are doing. Somebody has to do what they are doing, but it's not for me radical political work at all,
Wait. Yeah. Sorry. Now we'll now come to your famous visit to Dantewada. So we have all read your article on your visit to that CPI Maoist base, and we have found that you have admired their work. Now our question is, do you think that their approach will be effective in transforming the whole Indian society? And how do you think that the Maoists will succeed in overcoming religious, ideological, ethnic and other differences in regions outside the tribal belts?
I don't think that, I think that the Maoists have actually been hemmed into forest areas because of, in some ways, because of the tactics that they use. But I don't think that people who don't use their tactics could function in a forest area either, So I think that, of course, if you look at the history of what they were doing in Andhra, there were problems about, for example, how do you actually work in such a caste-based society? You can't. All communist parties have this problem of trying to just press the issue of class and elide the issue of caste, and neither of them is an adequate. If you look only at caste, you end up in the NGOs and Ford Foundation. If you look only at class, you end up having parties, whether you call yourself radical or not, led by Brahmins, led by men, doing charity or sort of basically tolerating lower castes or women and pretending otherwise. They have to. There has to be some way of working with both these things everywhere. I'm not just talking about the Communist Party, but in Assam you have so many tribal groups, and these identity fights suit the economic powers very, very well, and Indian society, or the society of the subcontinent, is tailor-made for identity squabbles, and the Americans are going to use it big time to keep everybody.
At the same time, you see, the problem is this. These people are socially oppressed, or they used to be socially oppressed.
Which people?
The tribes are rising now. And even though after some time they begin to commit excesses and they sort of play into the hands of, say, the big powers,